Uṣool Al-Ḥadeeth, The Methodology of Hadith Evaluation, by Dr. Abu Ameenah Bilal Phillips. 4. Classification. Due to a variety of factors, the narration of hadiths came under careful scrutiny beginning with the generation of the companions and their students. The statement of the Tabi'i Ibn Sirin, d. 110, in the previous chapter identifies the approximate time period in which verification began. He said, in the beginning, they would not ask about the isnad, but when the fitna, civil war, happened, they demanded, name your men to us. The narrations of the Ahlul Sunnah would be accepted, while those of Ahlul Bid'ah would be rejected. Once the name of the narrator was known, it was possible to investigate whether he was trustworthy or not, and whether he actually heard the person from whom he was reporting. Criticism of this nature later came to be known as Ilm al-Jarh wa Ta'dil, the science of validation. The earliest recorded comments made for this purpose were reported by Shu'bah ibn al-Hajjaj, 701 to 776 CE. Ibn Adi reported with his isnad going back to Abdul Rahman ibn al-Mahdi, who said, once they differed in the presence of Shu'bah and said, O Abu Bistam, appoint a judge between you and us. He replied, I agree to appoint Al-Ahwal, Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Qattan. After a short while he came. So they referred the issue to him and gave his judgment against Shu'bah. Shu'bah remarked, who else has the ability to examine, tanqud, like you? The term used by Shu'bah was a form of the verb naqada, which means to examine or test. Yahya ibn Sa'id, d. 804, was also the earliest of those whose comments were recorded. Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri, as was earlier mentioned, was the first to record biographical material about the hadith narrators along with the narrations themselves. From these early efforts, the science of hadith, Ilm Mustalah al-Hadith, or Ilm Uṣool Al-Ḥadeeth, evolved to distinguish between authentic narrations and spurious or fabricated ones. The scholars of hadith have dealt with each hadith as an independent case, subjecting both its isnad and its matan to close scrutiny according to the fundamental principles of this science. Although the rules and criteria governing the study of hadith were meticulous in the early generations, there was considerable variation in their terminology. Their principles can be found scattered among various books of that era, e.g., Al-Risala of Imam al-Shafi'i, d. 204 AH, the Introduction of Sahih Muslim of Imam Muslim, d. 261 AH, and Sunan al-Tirmidhi of Imam al-Tirmidhi, d. 279 AH. Later scholars deduced the criteria of the early scholars like al-Bukhari from a careful study of which narrators or isnads were accepted or rejected by them. One of the earliest writings to cover this science comprehensively, using standard terminology, was the work of Abu Muhammad al-Rama Hurmuzi, d. 360 AH/970 CE. The next major contribution was Ma'rifa Ulum al-Hadith by Al-Hakim, d. 405/1014. His work covered 50 classifications of hadith, but left some points untouched. Abu Na'im al-Isfahani, d. 430/1038, later completed the most important missing parts of Al-Hakim's work. Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi, d. 403/1012, followed his predecessors with his classic Al-Kifaya fi Ilm al-Ri'aya, along with another work on the etiquette of teaching and studying hadith. After further contributions by Qadi Iyad al-Yasubi, d. 544 AH, Abu Hafs al-Mayanji, d. 580, and others, came the most comprehensive treatment of the subject, Ulum al-Hadith, by Abu Amr Uthman ibn as-Salah, d. 643/1245. It is most commonly known as Muqaddimah ibn as-Salah, and was compiled while he taught at Dar al-Hadith of several cities in Syria. This text came to be the standard reference book for scholars and students of hadith from that time until today. Many later works on the science of hadith were based on it or were abridgments of it. Among them is an-Nawawi's abridgment, Al-Irshad, and his summary of this abridgment, Taqrib. As-Suyuti wrote an outstanding commentary on the latter, known as Tadrib al-Rawi. Ibn Kathir, d. 774 AH, also compiled an abridgment of Ibn Salah's work, called Ikhtisar Ulum al-Hadith, and so did Badruddin ibn Jamah, d. 733, in his work Al-Minhal. These books classified hadiths according to a number of considerations. They were analyzed according to the narrating authority, companion, successor, etc., the isnad, the number of narrators, the narrating terminology, the nature of the narrated text, and the reliability of the narrators. The early scholars of Hadith from the first 2 centuries generally classified Hadith into 2 broad categories: Sahih, authentic, and Da'eef, inauthentic. Imam at-Tirmidhi was the first to distinguish the category of Hasan, reliable, from the Da'eef. Ḥadeeth Ṣaḥeeḥ. A hadith must meet the 5 criteria in order to be accepted according to Islamic law as a source of legal ordinance. Ibn as-Salah defined the Ḥadeeth Ṣaḥeeḥ as follows. A Ḥadeeth Ṣaḥeeḥ is one which has a continuous isnad, made up of trustworthy narrators, narrating from trustworthy narrators, which is found to be free from any irregularities or defects. 1. Ittisal as-sanad, continuity of the chain of transmitters. The chain of narrators or transmitters who are relating the matan, text, has to be unbroken for the hadith to be considered. That is, none of the transmitters must be missing from the chain, and each narrator, rawi, has to have met the transmitter directly preceding him as well as the one directly following him. Each rawi has to be a known individual. Otherwise, he is classified as majhul, unknown, and the sanad is classified as broken. 2. Adala, integrity. The integrity of the narrators is the second key condition for a hadith to be considered valid. By integrity, we mean that the narrator was a practicing Muslim and was not known to have done any of the major forbidden things. If he was a known liar, he is classified as kadhab, and the hadith that he has transmitted is classified as da'eef. These are the conditions verified through the references of the biographical science of hadith, known as kutub al-rijal. 3. Dabt, accuracy. The accuracy of the text is determined by 2 factors, either of which is sufficient by itself. A. Dabt as-sadr, soundness of memory. Each narrator must be known for his ability to memorize and repeat with a high degree of accuracy. If a narrator had a tendency to repeat hadith in a number of different ways, such a hadith is classified as muttarib, confused, and any other hadith that he narrates will be classified as da'eef. When the narrator's level of accuracy is mediocre, but the other conditions for authenticity are fulfilled, the hadith is classified as hasan. B. Dabt al-kitaba, written accuracy. Each narrator who does not fulfill precondition A must be known for recording his hadith in books accurately and his narrations only be from his books. These 2 preconditions, A, B, are also verified by kutub al-rijal, books on biographies of narrators. 4. Ghayri shadh, conformity. It is critical that the hadith conform to similar hadiths narrated on the same topic whose chains are stronger. If the text of a hadith contradicts that of another well-known text whose chain of narration is stronger, or it is in conflict with a group of other narrators of a similar status, it is classified as shadh, errant, which is one of the categories of hadith da'eef. 5. La illa, absence of hidden defect. The hidden defect is one that causes the hadith to appear to be sound and only become evident after deep investigation. For a hadith to be considered sound, sahih, it has to be free of hidden defects. A hadith with hidden defects is called ma'lul or mu'allal. Ibn al-Madini, D. 324 AH, said that a defect can only be revealed if all the isnads of the hadith are collated. In his book Al-Ilal, he listed 34 successors and the names of the companions they heard hadiths from. For example, he said that Al-Hasan al-Basri, D. 110 AH, did not meet Ali, D. 40 AH, although there is a slight possibility that he may have seen him during his childhood in Medina. Such information is very important as it disproves the many Sufi traditions in which they claim that Al-Hasan heard from Ali. Only a few hadith scholars compiled books on this topic. Among them, Ibn Abi Hatim al-Razi, D. 327, Al-Kalal, D. 311, and Ad-Daraqutni, D. 385. Ruling of Ḥadeeth Ṣaḥeeḥ. A hadith that fulfills all the 5 conditions of sihha is referred to as a hadith sahih. Such a hadith can be used to establish points of Islamic law, and if it isn't abrogated, it must be accepted and applied. The ruling of a hadith sahih can only be superseded by that of another hadith sahih stronger than it. Sahih li ghayri. The hadith sahih may be further divided into sahih li dhati and sahih li ghayri. Hadiths fulfilling the 5 conditions completely were also referred to as Sahih li dhati. That is, it is Sahih by itself, without any external considerations. The Sahih li ghayri is a Ḥadeeth Ḥasan that has been elevated to the status of Sahih due to supporting narrations. The following is an example of a Sahih li ghayri narration found in Sunan Abi Dawud. حدثنا أبو كريب حدثنا عبدة بن سليمان عن محمد بن عمرو عن أبي سلمة عن أبي هريرة قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لولا أن أشق على الأمة لأمرتهم بالسواك عند كل الصلاة. Abu Kurayb informed us from Abda ibn Sulaiman, who informed them from Muhammad ibn Amr, from Abu Salama, from Abu Huraira, who quoted Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam as saying, "Were it not that I would place a great burden on my nation, I would have ordered them to use the miswak at the time of every salah." Ibn Salah stated that Muhammad ibn Amr ibn Alqamah was well known for his truthfulness and integrity, but he was considered inaccurate, saduq lahul awham. Abu Dawud stated at the end of the above-mentioned narration, Abu Isa at-Tirmidhi said, "This hadith has been narrated by Muhammad ibn Ishaq, from Muhammad ibn Ibrahim, from Abu Salama, from Zayd ibn Khalid, from the Prophet ﷺ, and the hadith of Abu Salama from Abu Huraira and Zayd ibn Khalid from the Prophet ﷺ are both sahih in my opinion, because this hadith has been narrated through more than one channel from Abu Huraira from the Prophet ﷺ. As for Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Bukhari, he claimed the hadith of Abu Salama from Zayd ibn Khalid is more authentic. Abu Isa said, "On this topic there are other narrations by Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, Ali, Aisha, Ibn Abbas, Hudhayfa, Zayd ibn Khalid, Anas, Abdullah ibn Amr, Ibn Umar, Habiba, Abu Umama, Abu Ayyub, Tammam ibn Abbas, Abdullah ibn Hanzala, Salama, Wathala ibn al-Asqa, and Abu Musa." Grades of Sahih. The most correct view is that it cannot be absolutely claimed that any particular chain of narrators is superior to any other Sahih narration. The actual grades of authenticity depend on how the chain and text is influenced by the 5 conditions for authenticity. For example, the lowest level of authentic narrations would be those hadiths which have transmitters whose accuracy is disputed. However, proof in favor of their reliability is overwhelming. For example, the narration of Suhail ibn Abi Saleh from his father from Abu Huraira. In spite of that fact, some scholars traditionally consider certain chains of narration to be of the highest grade. For example, Ahmad ibn Hanbal and Ishaq ibn Rahawayh considered Zuhri from Salim from his father, Abdullah ibn Umar, to be the strongest chain. On the other hand, Al-Bukhari considered Malik from Nafi from Abdullah ibn Umar to be the strongest. It came to be known as the golden chain. With regard to the Hadith Sahih, it cannot be said that they are all found in the books of Al-Bukhari and Muslim, because these scholars themselves confirmed that they did not gather all of the Hadith Sahih. Al-Bukhari stated, "I only wrote in my book, Al-Jami' what was authentic, and I omitted some authentic narrations to avoid it becoming too long." Imam Muslim also said, "I did not include in this book every hadith I found to be Sahih. I only put in it what the scholars agreed upon." In fact, the majority of authentic hadiths are found outside of these 2 compilations. Imam al-Bukhari himself stated, "And the authentic hadiths which I have omitted are more than I have included in my book." He also stated, "I memorized 100,000 authentic hadiths and 200,000 inauthentic hadiths." And the total number of hadiths in Sahih al-Bukhari is around 4,000, and in Sahih Muslim is also around 4,000. The hadiths may be graded according to criteria used by Imams al-Bukhari and Muslim, which were considered to be of the highest standard. 1. Authentic hadiths recorded by both al-Bukhari and Muslim. Such narrations are often referred to by scholars as muttafaqun alayh, agreed upon. 2. Authentic hadiths recorded by only al-Bukhari. 3. Authentic hadiths recorded by only Muslim. 4. Authentic hadiths according to the criteria of al-Bukhari and Muslim, recorded by others. 5. Authentic hadiths according to the criteria of al-Bukhari alone, recorded by others. 6. Authentic hadiths according to the criteria of Muslim alone, recorded by others. 7. Authentic hadiths not according to the criteria of either Al-Bukhari or Muslim. Ḥadeeth Ḥasan. Linguistically, the term Hasan means beautiful, fair, good. However, according to the science of hadith evaluation, it refers to a hadith that is graded between Sahih and Da'eef, inauthentic. At-Tirmidhi, who was the first to use the term Hasan consistently in a technical way, defined it as a hadith that does not have in its chain a narrator suspected of lying, nor does it conflict with superior texts and is transmitted via more than one chain of similar strength. This definition is quite general and could include the hadith sahih li-ghayrih, sahih due to external corroboration. Or it could define one dimension of the hadith Hasan, namely the Hasan li-ghayrih, Hasan due to external corroboration. Ibn Hajar, on the other hand, gave the most accurate definition of the Hadith Hasan as one transmitted by upstanding narrators in a continuous chain of narration free from any hidden defects or conflict with superior texts, except that it contains a narrator or narrators whose accuracy is inferior. Such a hadith is regarded as Hasan li dhati, Hasan by itself. In other words, a hadith is considered Hasan if it fulfills all the requirements of sihha except dabt, accuracy. If the memory of a narrator was only considered fair, saduq, that is, he was known to make a few mistakes, the hadith is lowered from the level of sahih to the level of Hasan. In the early days, some scholars like Ibn Khuzaymah, one of al-Bukhari's teachers, made no distinction between the hadith sahih and the hadith Hasan. Ibn Hibban al-Hakim also followed this practice. The following is an example of a hadith Hasan from the Sunan of Imam al-Tirmidhi. حدثنا قتيبة حدثنا جعفر بن سليمان الدفعي عن أبي عمران الجوني عن أبي بكر بن أبي موسى الأشعري قال سمعت أبي بحضرة العدو يقول قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن أبواب الجنة تحت ظلال السيوف. قال أبو عيسى هذا حديث حسن غريب. Qutayba informed us from Ja'far ibn Sulaiman al-Dubai, who informed us from Abu Imran al-Jawni, from Abu Bakr ibn Abi Musa al-Ash'ari, who said, I heard my father saying when we faced the enemy, the Prophet ﷺ said, Indeed, paradise is under the shade of the swords. Abu Isa at-Tirmidhi said, This is a hadith Hasan Gharib. This hadith is rated Hasan because Ja'far ibn Sulaiman was graded Saduq, less accurate but upright, while the other narrators were all graded thiqah, reliable. The ruling on a hadith is always according to the weakest link in its chain of narrators. It is a hadith Hasan li dhati. However, due to the existence of 3 narrations of this text in Sahih al-Bukhari and 2 narrations in Sahih Muslim, it is reclassified as Sahih li ghayrih. The following hadith is one of the corroborating narrations in Sahih al-Bukhari. حدثنا عبد الله بن محمد حدثنا معاوية بن عمر حدثنا أبو إسحاق عن موسى بن عقبة عن سالم أبي النضر مولى عمر بن عبيد الله وكان كاتبه قال كتب إليه عبد الله بن أبي أوفى رضي الله عنهما أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال واعلموا أن الجنة تحت ظلال السيوف. Abdullah ibn Muhammad informed us that Muawiyah ibn Amr informed them from Abu Ishaq, from Musa ibn Uqba, from Salim ibn al-Nadr, the freed slave and scribe of Umar ibn Ubaydillah, who said that Abdullah ibn Abi Awfa wrote to him saying that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Know that paradise is under the shade of the swords. Grades. As in the case of the Hadith Sahih, where certain chains were considered the strongest, the following 2 chains were considered the strongest among the Hasan Hadiths. Bahz ibn Hakim, from his father, from his grandfather. Amr ibn Shu'ayb, from his father, from his grandfather. Hadiths in which there are disputes as to whether they are to be considered Hasan or Da'eef are rated lower, like the narrations of Harith ibn Abdullah, Asim ibn Damra, Hajjaj ibn Arat, etc. Terminology. When Hadith scholars use the phrase Sahih al-Isnad, an authentic chain of narration, To describe a hadith, they are making a subtle indication that it is below the category of Ḥadeeth Ṣaḥeeḥ. That is, it is probably a Ḥadeeth Ḥasan. On the other hand, if they use the phrase Ḥasanul Isnad, a sound chain of narration, it means that the hadith is da'eef. The reason for such a classification is that a chain may be Sahih or Hasan with respect to the first three conditions. 1. Adal, 2. Ittisal as-sanad, and 3. Dabt. Yet, it may contain hidden defects or contradict a superior text. Imam at-Tirmidhi often described hadiths in his Sunan using the ambiguous phrase Hasanun Sahih, Hasan Sahih, sound, authentic. Ibn Hajar, and followed by As-Suyuti, explained it as referring to either a hadith which has two or more chains in which one chain may be Hasan while another may be Sahih. In other words, it is actually Sahih li ghayri. A hadith with only one chain about which some scholars have graded it Sahih while others have graded it Hasan, and Imam at-Tirmidhi was reluctant to give preference to one opinion over the other. Imam al-Baghawi, in his work Masabih as-Sunnah, classified hadiths found in Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim as Sahih, while those found in the Sunan he classified as Hasan. However, the scholars of hadith rejected his classification because the hadiths found in the Sunan are a mixture of Sahih, authentic, Hasan, sound, da'eef, weak, and mawdu', fabricated. Texts. There are no texts in which Hasan hadiths have been specifically compiled. However, hadiths of that grade can be found in all of the Sunans. In the case of Sunan Abi Dawood, the author expressed that the Sahih and Da'eef and those narrations that resemble them are clearly identified. Those without any reference at all were Hasan in his estimation. Hadith Hasan li ghayrih. If one or more of the narrators belong to a lower grade, i.e. grades 5 or 6, rendering the hadith da'eef, that is, its weakness is due to poor memory of a narrator or narrators and not due to indecent behavior or lies, and there are other hadiths supporting it in form or sense, it would be reclassified as Hasan li ghayrih. It should again be noted that the overall acceptability of an isnad is based on its weakest link. Consequently, if all of the narrators were highly reliable, thiqa, and anyone, anywhere in the chain was classified as a liar, kadhab, the hadith would be classified as fabricated even if proved authentic by other isnads. The following is an example of a Hasan li ghayrih hadith found in Sunan at-Tirmidhi. حدثنا محمد بن بشار حدثنا يحيى بن سعيد وعبد الرحمن بن مهدي ومحمد بن جعفر قالوا حدثنا شعبة عن عاصم بن عبيد الله سمعت عبد الله بن عامر بن ربيعة عن أبيه أن امرأة من بني فزارة تزوجت على نعلين، فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: أرديت من نفسك ومالك بنعلين؟ قالت نعم. قال فأجازه. Muhammad ibn Bashar informed us that Yahya ibn Sa'id and Abdul Rahman ibn Mahdi and Muhammad ibn Ja'far all said, Shu'bah informed us from Asim ibn Ubaydillah, who said that he heard Abdullah ibn Amr ibn Rabi'ah from his father that a lady from the Fazara tribe was married based on a dowry of a pair of sandals. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ asked, Are you pleased to turn over yourself and your wealth for a pair of sandals? She replied yes, so he permitted it. Asim ibn Ubaydillah is classified as da'eef by Yahya ibn Mu'in and Ahmad ibn Hanbal, and Munkar by al-Bukhari. However, at-Tirmidhi added, there are other narrations on this topic, from Umar, Abu Huraira, Sahal ibn Sa'ad, Abu Sa'id, Anas, Aisha, Jabir, Abu Hadrad al-Aslami. Thus, Amr ibn Rabi'ah's narration is Hasan Sahih. Ruling on the Hadith Hasan. The Hadith Hasan is valid for establishing Islamic rulings that should not be rejected unless abrogated or superseded by a Hadith Sahih. In this respect, it is no different from a Hadith Sahih. They both represent valid instructions authentically transmitted from the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, who must be obeyed when he instructs, and whose recommendations are better taken when he advises. Hadith Da'eef. Linguistically, Da'eef means weak, while technically it refers to a narration below the standard of Hasan. This is a hadith in which any one or more of the 5 conditions of sihha has not been met. Al-Baykuni defined the Ḥadeeth Ḥasan in his poetry on Uṣool Al-Ḥadeeth in a similar way. وَكُلُّ مَا عَنْ رُتْبَةِ الْحَسَنِ الْقَدَرِ فَهُوَ ضَعِيفٌ وَهُوَ أَقْسَامٌ كَثُرٌ. Whatever is short of the level of Hasan, it is da'if and it has numerous branches. A sample of a da'if narration can be found in the following narration collected by At-Tirmidhi. حدثنا بندار حدثنا يحيى بن سعيد وعبد الرحمن بن مهدي وبهز بن أسد قالوا حدثنا حماد بن سلمة عن حكيم الأثرم عن أبي تميم الهجيمي عن أبي هريرة عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: من أتى حائضا أو امرأة في دبرها أو كاهنة فقد كفر بما أنزل على محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. قال أبو عيسى: لا نعرف هذا الحديث إلا من حديث حكيم الأثرم عن أبي تميم الهجيمي عن أبي هريرة. Bundar informed us, saying Yahya ibn Sa'id and Abdul Rahman ibn Mahdi and Baz ibn Asad said that Hamad ibn Salama informed them from Hakim al-Athram, from Tamima al-Hujaymi, from Abu Huraira, that the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever cohabits with a menstruating woman, or enters a woman from her anus, or goes to a fortune teller, has disbelieved in what was revealed to Muhammad ﷺ. Abu Isa said, we do not know this hadith except from the narration of Hakim al-Athram, from Abu Tamima al-Hujaymi, from Abu Huraira. Hakim al-Athram was graded weak by the scholars, and Ibn Hajar labeled him Layyin in Taqrib al-Tahdhib. Grades of Da'eef. The weakness of a hadith will vary according to the severity of the weakness due to breaks in the chain or defects in the narrators. As to the weakest chain, it would be the fabricated narrations. Al-Hakim commented in his work, Ma'rifa Ulum al-Hadith, about the weakest narrations attributed to certain companions, regions, and countries. For example, he stated that the weakest narration linked to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq was that of Ibn Musa ad-Daqiqi, from Farqad as-Subki, from Murahad at-Tayyib, from Abu Bakr. He further stated that the weakest chain linked to the people of Syria was that of Muhammad ibn Qais al-Maslub, from Ubaydullah ibn Zahra, from Ali ibn Yazid, from Qasim, from Abu Umama. Ruling on Da'eef narrations. Scholars differed regarding the use of Hadith Da'eef. The majority permitted its application for meritorious deeds not pertaining to theology or legal rulings, halal and haram, according to 3 conditions specified by Ibn Hajar. 1. The hadith must not be excessively weak, containing liars or fabricators. 2. It must be acknowledged as reliable evidence. 3. One does not suppose that by its application its strength is established. Sufyan al-Thawri, Abdurrahman ibn Mahdi, and Ahmad ibn Hanbal used weak narrations. In fact, Imam Ahmed preferred to use weak narrations to qiyas. The Hadith Da'eef is also referred to in classical works as al-Khabar al-Mardud, rejected narrations. The inauthentic hadith is one in which the truth of the report is highly unlikely due to the loss of one or more of the conditions for the acceptance. Some da'eef hadiths may be reclassified due to supportive factors, while others are totally rejected. The inauthentic hadith may be further subdivided into different subcategories based on which of the 5 criteria has not been met. Causes of rejection. The factors which cause a hadith to be rejected all fall under 2 main headings. 1. A break in the chain of narration, or 2. A defect in the narrator himself. 1. Breaks in the chain of narration. The breaks in the chain of narration can be classified according to appearance into 2 categories: obvious breaks and hidden breaks. A. Obvious breaks refers to those isnads in which a narrator did not come in contact with his teacher due either to the difference in generations, making it impossible for them to meet, or due to him not ever meeting with the teacher according to records. Because of that, the researcher in the area of narrators needs to know the biographies of the narrators themselves, since they contain the dates of birth and death, time period in which they studied, their journeys, etc. Hadith scholars have coined 4 names for these categories according to the place where the break occurs, or the number of narrators deleted. I, mu'allaq, I, mursal, I, mu'dal, and IV, munqati'. B. Hidden breaks refers to isnads in which a narrator is deleted or hidden in a subtle fashion, not readily visible from a study of the individual biographies. This category has two main forms. 1. Mudallas, and 2. Mursal khafi. A. Obvious breaks. I. Mu'allaq, hanging. This term, derived from the verb alaqa, to suspend, to hang, is used because only the upper part of the chain remains, giving it an appearance of dangling. Technically, it means a hadith in which the beginning of its chain of narration has one or more consecutive narrators deleted. E.g., Al-Bukhari recorded the following in the beginning of his chapter concerning thighs. وقال أبو موسى خط النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم الركبتين حين دخل عثمان. Abu Musa said, the Prophet ﷺ covered his thighs when Uthman entered. This hadith is classified as mu'allaq because Al-Bukhari deleted all of its chain of narrators except the companion Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. In his chapter on the obligation of salah in clothes, Imam al-Bukhari states, وأمر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ألا يطوف بالبيت عريان. And the Prophet ﷺ instructed that no naked person should walk around the Kaaba. In this narration, he deleted the complete chain, including the companion, up to the Prophet ﷺ. The mu'allaq narration may be a hadith from the Prophet ﷺ, as in the previously mentioned examples, or it could be the statement or deed of a companion or a successor. For example, Al-Bukhari related in his chapter on salah, on rooftops, pulpits, and wood, وصلى أبو هريرة على سقف المسجد بالصلاة الإمام وصلى أبو عمر على الثلج. Abu Huraira prayed on the roof of the mosque following the prayer of the Imam, and Ibn Umar prayed on snow. This description of Abu Huraira's practice is mentioned by Al-Bukhari without a chain of narration. And in the chapter on tayammum, under the heading Clean Earth, he narrated the following. وقال حسن يجزئه التيمم ما لم يحدث. Al-Hasan said, tayammum is sufficient as long as he doesn't break his state of purity. Al-Hasan here is Al-Hasan ibn Al-Hasan ibn Yasar al-Basri, D110 AH, from the medial level of the successors. Mu'allaq hadiths are generally automatically classified da'eef and rejected because one of the conditions of authenticity is missing, except if they are mentioned in hadith collections in which the authors spent great efforts to only include sahih hadiths, e.g. Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. Such narrations were used only as headings or supportive evidence, which they considered weak and did not constitute the main proof for Islamic principles. Furthermore, in most cases, later hadith scholars have tracked down the majority of these narrations with complete chains in other hadith compilations, e.g. the hadith of Abu Amir from the Prophet ﷺ that لَيَكُونَنَّ مِنْ أُمَّتِي أَقْوَامٌ يَسْتَحِلُّونَ الْحِرْ وَالْحَرِيرِ وَالْخَمْرِ وَالْمَعَازِفِ وَلَيَنْزِلَنَّ أَقْوَامٌ إِلَى جَنْبِ عَلَمٍ يَرُوحُ عَلَيْهِمْ بِصَارِخَاتٍ لَهُمْ يَأْتِيهِمْ يَعْنِي الْفَقِيرَ لِحَاجَةٍ فيقولون ارجع إلينا غدا فيبيتهم الله ويدع العلم ويمسخ آخرين قردة وخنازير إلى يوم القيامة. There will be among my nation people who will make lawful fornication, silk, intoxicants, and musical instruments. In Bukhari's collection it is mu'allaq, but is muttasal, connected in the collections of Al-Bayhaqi, At-Tabarani, and Ibn Asakir, and also by Abu Dawood from Abdurrahman ibn Yazid. It is mentioned in Sahih al-Bukhari in the chapter on drinks, under the heading, What is narrated concerning one who makes halal intoxicants and calls it by other than its name. The mu'allaq narrations in Sahih al-Bukhari are many. However, the great hadith scholar Ibn Hajar wrote a book dedicated to tracking down all the mu'allaq narrations of Sahih al-Bukhari that he called Taqlib at-Ta'liq, closing tightly the hanging narrations. On the other hand, the mu'allaq narrations in Sahih Muslim are very few. There are only 6 mu'allaq narrations from the Prophet ﷺ, of which Imam Muslim himself mentioned 5 of them with complete chains elsewhere in his compilation. The remaining narration, number 369, was found by others. Ruling on mu'allaq narrations of Al-Bukhari and Muslim. Such hadiths are generally considered authentic if the hadith is narrated using verbs in the active voice, like rawa, he narrated, qala, he said, dhakara, he mentioned. On the other hand, if they are narrated using the passive voice, like ruwiya, it was narrated, qila, it was said, dhukira, it was mentioned, their status is uncertain. Some of them may be sahih, others hasan, and yet others da'eef. However, the weak narrations are not excessively weak due to their presence in these books, in which the author sought to compile only authentic hadiths. It should be noted, however, that those hadiths narrated in the passive voice due to weakness may have authentic chains which Al-Bukhari did not come across. For example, in the beginning of his chapter concerning thighs mentioned earlier, Imam al-Bukhari stated, وَيُرْوَى عَنْ ibn Abbas وَجَرْهَد وَمُحَمَّد ibn Jahsh عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم الفخذ عورة وقال أنس بن مالك حسر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم عن فخذه قال أبو عبيد الله وحديث أنس أسناد وحديث جرحد أخوة حتى يخرج من اختلافهم. And it has been narrated from Ibn Abbas, Jarhad, and Muhammad ibn Jahsh from the Prophet ﷺ, the thigh is from the private parts. Anas ibn Malik said, the Prophet ﷺ uncovered his thigh. Abu Abdullah al-Bukhari said, Anas's hadith has a better chain and that of Jarhad is more precautionary in order to escape their contradiction. The passive voice was used for Jarhad and active for Anas. However, there are 4 complete narrations of Jarhad's quotation in Sunan at-Tirmidhi, 1 in Sunan Abi Dawud, and 8 in Musnad Ahmad, and 2 in Sunan at-Darimi. Mu'allaq narrations in other collections are generally considered da'eef regardless of how they are mentioned by the authors, active or passive voice. Mursal, generalized. The adjective mursal comes from the verb arsala, to set free, to let loose, to send. This term is used because the narrator has generalized in freely quoting the chain of narrators by omitting a narrator. Technically, a mursal narration is a hadith in which the last narrator, i.e. sahabi, has been deleted. Al-Bayquni defined the Ḥadeeth Ḥasan in his poetry on Uṣool Al-Ḥadeeth in a similar way. وَمُرْسَلٌ مِنْهُ السَّحَابِيُّ السَّقَطِ وَقُلْ غَرِيبٌ مَا رَوَى رَاوٍ فَقَطْ. And mursal is that from which the companion has fallen, and say, gharib is what only a single narrator has narrated. An example of such a hadith can be found in the following narration from Sahih Muslim in the chapter on business transactions. وحدثنا محمد بن رافع حدثنا حجين بن المثنى حدثنا الليث عن عقيل عن ابن شهاب عن سعيد بن المسيب أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم نهى عن بيع المزابنة والمحاقلة. والمزابنة أن يباع ثمر النخل بالتمر، والمحاقلة أن يباع الزرع بالقمص، واستكراء الأرض بالقمح. Muhammad ibn Rafi told me that Hujayn ibn al-Muthanna told them that Al-Layth reported from Aqil, from Ibn Shihab, from Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib that Allah's Messenger ﷺ forbade al-muzabana and al-muhaqala. Al-muzabana means that fresh dates on the tree are sold for dry dates, and al-muhaqala means that wheat in the ear is sold for ground wheat and renting farmland for wheat. Sa'id, who was a tabi'i, has reported this hadith without mentioning the link between himself and the Prophet ﷺ. That link could have been a sahabi, or it could have been another tabi'i, like himself, who was reporting it from a sahabi. The jurists, fuqaha, generally define the mursal as any omission in the chain, wherever it may occur, and Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi agreed with them. The ruling on mursal hadith. Such a hadith is in essence da'eef and thus rejected due to the loss of the condition of ittisal, continuity, and the lack of knowledge about the missing narrator who may have been a sahabi or another tabi'i. This basic ruling stands regardless of whether the chain of narrators up to the successor is authentic or not. If the chain up to the successor is authentic, it is referred to as mursal sahih or sahih mursal. For example, Abu Dawood collected the following narration in his collection of mursal narrations. حدثنا سليمان بن داود حدثنا بن وهب أخبرنا حيوة بن شريح عن سالم بن غيلان عن يزيد بن أبي حبيب أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم مر على امرأتين تصلين فقال إذا سجدتما فدم بعض اللحم إلى الأرض فإن المرأة ليست بذلك كالرجال. Sulaiman ibn Dawood informed us, saying Ibn Wahab informed us, saying Haywa ibn Shurayh informed us, from Salim ibn Ghaylam, from Yazid ibn Habib, that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ passed by two women who were praying and said, whenever you prostrate, huddle some of your flesh towards the ground, for the woman is not like the man in that respect. All of the narrators are reliable, however it is mursal because Yazid ibn Abi Habib was a minor successor. Consequently, it is sahih ul-isnad mursal, but da'eef and thus cannot be used as independent legal evidence. Scholars of hadith and others differed regarding the use of mursal narrations as textual evidence because this type of omission differs from others. The positions of the scholars regarding mursal narrations are summarized in the following three categories. A. The mursal is weak and rejected. The majority of hadith scholars rejected the mursal narration, arguing that the omitted narrator is not necessarily a companion due to a lack of information about exactly who the omitted narrator was. B. The mursal is valid and accepted. The leading imams, Abu Hanifa, Malik, and Ahmad, and others argued that the mursal narration was valid as evidence on condition 1, that the successor who narrated it was himself reliable, and 2, that he was known to normally narrate from reliable sources as well. They argued that it is inconceivable that a reliable successor say, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, if they did not receive it from someone reliable. C. The mursal may be conditionally accepted. Imam al-Shafi'i and other scholars accepted the mursal narration if 4 conditions were fulfilled, 3 of which relate to the narrators and 1 to the text of the hadith itself. 1. That the successor was from among the major or senior successors. 2. That the successor be graded as reliable, thiqa. 3. That reliable scholars did not dispute its validity. And 4. That the previous 3 conditions be reinforced by either another continuous narration, another mursal with a different chain, statements of the companions to the same effect, or its use in the fatwas of leading jurists. In the case of point 4 above, both narrations would be considered authentic and would be preferred to other authentic narrations with only single chains of narration, where there are irreconcilable differences. Exceptional mursal. There is one category of mursal that is an exception from the general grading of da'eef. If the successor narrates something he heard or saw the Prophet ﷺ do while he was a disbeliever, and the Prophet ﷺ died before his conversion, his narration is considered continuous and authentic, though externally appearing as a mursal narration. For example, the narration of At-Tannuhi, Heraclius' emissary, who had been sent to the Prophet ﷺ to ask him certain questions, and the narration of Caesar's emissary, collected by Ahmad and Abu Ya'la in their musnads, and recorded as hadiths with continuous chains of narration. Mursal al-Sahabi. If a Sahabi narrates a saying or action of the Prophet ﷺ which he could not have heard or seen due to either his age, late entrance into Islam, or his absence at the time of the event, such a narration is classified as Mursal al-Sahaba. There are many such hadiths narrated by young Sahaba like Ibn Abbas, Ibn az-Zubayr, and others. An example of that can be found in Aisha's narration in Sahih al-Bukhari in the chapter on the beginning of Revelation, in which she describes how revelation to the Prophet ﷺ began in the cave of Hira, Khadija's response, the story of Waraka ibn Nawfal, etc. Aisha was not present on those occasions. Consequently, she either learned about them from the Prophet ﷺ himself or from other companions. It is highly unlikely that she learned about them from any of the successors. The ruling on Mursal al-Sahaba. The majority of scholars regard it as a Ḥadeeth Ṣaḥeeḥ because narrations of the Sahaba from Tabi'un are extremely rare, and if they did so, they used to indicate it. If they did not say anything, it is assumed that it must have been from another Sahaba. Since the Sahaba are all considered adul, reliable, this generalization does not affect the reliability of the Hadith. Literature. Some books have been written on Mursal narrations, like Al-Marasil by Abu Dawood, Al-Marasil by Ibn Abi Hatim, and Jami' al-Tahsil li Ahkam al-Marasil by Ala'i. III, Munqata', broken. The label is derived from the verb inqata'a, to be broken. Technically, it refers to a hadith in which one or more narrators has been deleted at random from the middle of the chain of narrators. Imam an-Nawawi stated that most hadith scholars defined it as a break between the successors and the companion. Ibn Hajar preferred this definition and added that the break could occur at more than one place in the chain. An example of this category can be found in the following narration from Ibn Abi Hatim's collection. روى عبد الرزاق عن الثوري عن أبي إسحاق عن زيد بن يثيع عن حذيفة عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إن وليتموها أبا بكر فقوي أمين. Abdul Razak narrated from Al-Thawri, from Abu Ishaq, from Zayd ibn Uthay, from the Prophet ﷺ, that he said, "It would be good if you made Abu Bakr your leader, wali, for he is strong and trustworthy." The narrator Shuraik has been deleted from the middle of the chain between Al-Thawri and Abu Ishaq because Al-Thawri did not hear any narrations from Abu Ishaq directly, but used to hear them through Shuraik, who studied under Abu Ishaq. IV, Mu'dal, double break. Linguistically, Mu'dal is derived from adala, which means to be perplexed. Technically, it refers to a hadith in which two or more consecutive narrators are deleted in the middle or the end of the chain. If two or more narrators are deleted from the beginning, it's called mu'allaq. E.g., Al-Hakim mentions in his book, Ma'rifa Ulum al-Hadith, that Al-Katnabi reported from Malik that a report reached him that Abu Hurairah said that Allah's Messenger said, لِلْمَمْلُوكِ طَعَامُهُ وَكِسْوَتُهُ وَلَا يُكَلِّفُ مِنَ الْعَمَلِ إِلَّا مَا يُطِيقُ. The Mamluk, slave, should be given food and clothing according to normal standards, and not be burdened with work beyond his ability. This hadith is classified as mu'dal because Imam Malik has deleted 2 or 3 narrators between himself and Abu Hurairah. We know 2 were deleted because the same hadith has been collected in other collections besides Al-Muwatta with the following chain. Malik reported from Muhammad ibn Ajlan, from his father, from Abu Hurairah. The mu'dal and mu'allaq are identical when the narrators are omitted consecutively at the beginning of the chain of narrators and different when 2 are missing from the middle, i.e. mu'dal, or 1 is missing from the beginning, i.e. mu'allaq. Scholars of hadith unanimously consider the mu'dal as weaker and more defective than the mursal and the munqata' due to excessive omissions in its chain. B. Hidden breaks. I. Mudallas, counterfeit. The word mudallas comes from the verb dallasa, which literally means to hide the defects in goods from a buyer. Technically, it refers to the hiding of a defect in the sanad and the beautification of its outer appearance. It may be further subdivided into 2 other groups. A. Tadlis as-sanad and B. Tadlis as-shuyukh. A. Tadlis as-sanad. This form of tadlis has 2 manifestations. 1. The first is the case where a narrator narrates something which he did not hear from someone whom he studied under in an ambiguous fashion. He does not openly claim to have heard it from his teacher, but only implies it by using the phrase qala, he said, or an, from. E.g., Ali ibn Kashram said that Ibn Uyayna related to us from Az-Zuhri, but when he was asked, "Did you hear it from Az-Zuhri?" he replied, "Abdur Razak informed me from Mu'ammar, from Az-Zuhri." In this example, Ibn Uyayna has deleted 2 narrators between himself and Az-Zuhri. The following is another example from Sunan Abi Dawood. حدثنا عبيد الله بن سعد حدثنا عمي حدثنا أبي عن ابن إسحاق عن محمد بن عمرو بن عطاء عن ذكوان مولى عائشة أنها حدثته أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كان يصلي بعد العصر وينهى عنها ويواصل وينهى عن الوصال. Ubaydullah ibn Sa'ad informed us, saying, my uncle informed us, saying, my father informed us, from Ibn Ishaq, from Muhammad ibn Amr ibn Ata, from Dhakwan, the free slave of Aisha, that she informed him that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ used to pray after Asr prayers and forbid it, and he used to fast for 24 hours and forbid continual fasting. The narrators of this hadith are reliable. However, Ibn Ishaq, whose name was Muhammad ibn Ishaq ibn Yasar, was a known mudallis, and he narrated this hadith from Muhammad ibn Amr using the phrase an, from, without clearly indicating that he actually heard it from him. 2. The other form is where a rawi narrates from his teacher, deleting from the chain a weaker narrator between two strong narrators who met each other by using ambiguous terminology. E.g., Abu Hatim collected the following hadith in which his father said, Ibn Ishaq ibn Rahaway reported from Bakiya, who said that Abu Wahab al-Asadi informed him from Nafi, from Ibn Umar, the hadith, لا تحمدوا إسلام المرء حتى تعرفوا عقدة الرأي. Don't praise a man's Islam until you know what his opinions are. Abu Hatim's father said, this hadith has in it a point which few people realize. Ubaydullah ibn Amr narrated this hadith from Ishaq ibn Farwa, from Nafi, from Ibn Umar, from the Prophet ﷺ, because Ubaydullah ibn Sakiya called him Abu Wahab al-Asasi, so he would not be spotted when he dropped Ishaq ibn Abi Farwa. Ubaydullah was considered thiqa, reliable narrator. Ishaq ibn Farwa was weak, and Nafi was strong. This form of tadlis is also called tadlis at-taswiyah, and is the worst form of tadlis. Scholars like Al-Iraqi declared, any scholar who does tadlis at-taswiyah will be dismissed as weak. Among those noted for this practice was Al-Walid ibn Muslim. The most infamous practitioner of this act was Bakiya ibn al-Walid. B. Tadlis al-Shuyukh. This is the case in which a narrator relates a hadith from one of his teachers, shuyukh, but refers to him by an unknown name, nickname, or characteristic. An example of this type of tadlis is Abu Bakr ibn Mujahid's statement, Abdullah ibn Abdullah informed us, in which he is referring to the hadith scholar, Abu Bakr ibn Dawood as-Sajistani. This form of tadlis was less detested since no omission took place in the chain as a result of it. It was disliked because the distortion of the narrator's identity complicated tracing his grading and the overall grading of the hadith. Reasons for tadlis. 1. Narrators obscured the chains in order to have apparently stronger narrations due to fewer narrators or to hide missed opportunities of receiving hadiths directly from a prominent sheikh. 2. The identities of narrators were distorted to hide weak narrators or to give the impression that one had many teachers. Ruling concerning the mudallisin. It is obvious from the conditions of those who practiced tadlis and the statements of the scholars regarding them that they were of different levels. Some were known to do so rarely, like Sufyan al-Thawri, Ibn Uyayna al-Amash, and others. Though they were described as mudallisin, the label does not degrade the narrations, because rulings are not based on minute errors, but on what is most common. Others were accused of tadlis by some scholars. However, it was not proven, and the leading scholars of this field did not describe them as such. For example, Habib ibn Abi Thabit was labeled by Ibn Hibban and Ibn Khuzaymah as a mudallis, but a large group of specialists, among them Al-Bukhari, Ahmad, Ibn Ma'in, Ali ibn al-Madini, An-Nasa'i, Abu Hatim al-Razi, and Sufyan al-Thawri, classified him reliable. Ibn Hajar mistakenly mentioned him in At-Taqrib as being a frequent mudallis, but in the beginning of his compendium, Fathul Bari, he mentioned that Habib ibn Abi Thabit was mislabeled weak based on unacceptable matters. Furthermore, Ibn al-Thahabi praised him and totally ignored the claims of tadlis. Some hadith scholars held that narrators who practiced any form of tadlis would be rejected as weak and untrustworthy. Others held that the narrations of the mudallis would be considered if openly declared that he heard the hadith by using terms like sami'tu, I heard, and they would be rejected if ambiguous terms like an, from, were used. For example, Al-Thahabi stated that the majority of experts considered Baqiya ibn al-Walid to be reliable, thaqa, in what he heard from reliable narrators. Another example is Ibn Jurayj's statement regarding himself that whatever he narrated from Ata, he heard. Thus, scholars would not accept any hadith in which Ibn Jurayj did not clearly state he heard it, except narrations from Ata. The methods of identifying tadlis. 1. By the mudallis reporting his act, if directly questioned, as in the case of Ibn Uyayna. For example, Imam al-Thahabi mentioned in his work, Mizan al-Ittidal, from Saleh, who related from Al-Haytham ibn Kharija, that he said, I told Al-Walid ibn Muslim, you have corrupted the hadiths of Al-Awza'i. He asked, how? I said, you narrate from Al-Awza'i, from Nafi, from Al-Awza'i, from Az-Zuhri, and from Al-Awza'i, from Yahya ibn Sa'id, while others put Abdullah ibn Amir al-Aslami between Al-Awza'i and Nafi, and Abu al-Haytham between him and Az-Zuhri. So what has caused you to do that? He replied, Al-Awza'i is greater than to narrate from the likes of them. So I said to myself, if Al-Awza'i narrated from these weak individuals, rejected hadiths, and I deleted them, and made Al-Awza'i's narration from reliable narrators, Al-Awza'i would appear weak, and my statement would not be considered. 2. By a statement of one of the contemporary scholars to that effect, e.g., Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi's book called At-Tibyan li Asma' al-Mudallisin. II. Mursal Khafi, hidden generalization. Technically, this means that someone narrates something he did not hear from someone whom he met or who was his contemporary, using terminology implying that he heard it from him. The difference between Mursal Khafi and Tadlis as-Sanad is that in the case of Mursal, he narrates from someone whom he did not study under, whereas in Tadlis, he narrates from his teacher. E.g., حدثنا محمد بن الصباح أنبأنا عبد العزيز بن محمد عن صالح بن محمد بن زيد عن عمر بن عبد العزيز عن عقبة بن عامر الجهيني قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم رحم الله حارس الحرس. Muhammad ibn Sabah informed us, saying Abdul Aziz ibn Muhammad informed us, from Saleh ibn Muhammad ibn Zaid, from Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, from Uqba ibn Amir al-Juhayni, who quoted the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam as saying, may Allah's mercy be on the watchguard who watched over the other watchguards. Umar did not meet Uqba, though he lived in his time according to Al-Mizzi in his book Al-Atraf. The methods of recognition. This type of irsal may be identified by any one of the following three factors. 1. The statement of one of the scholars that such and such a narrator never met the narrator from whom he was narrating, or that he never heard anything from him. 2. The narrator informing on himself by admitting that he never met or heard directly from the narrator from whom he narrated. 3. If the hadith comes along another chain in which people are added between a narrator and the one from whom he was supposed to be narrating. Ruling on the Mursal Khafi. It is fundamentally a weak narration due to an obscured missing link. Once the omission is clearly identified, the narration is considered munqati'. That concludes the 6 types of rejected narration due to breaks in the chain of narration. However, mu'an'an and mu'annan hadiths could also be included. III. Mu'an'an and mu'annan. The mu'an'an is a hadith in which the narrator relates it using the preposition an, meaning from, without specifying that he was directly informed. The following is an example of a mu'an'an hadith. حدثنا عثمان بن أبي شيبة حدثنا معاوية بن هشام حدثنا سفيان عن أسامة بن زيد عن عثمان بن عروة عن عروة عن عائشة قالت قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على ميامن الصفوف. Uthman ibn Abi Shayba informed us that Muawiyah ibn Hisham informed him, that Sufyan informed him, from Usama ibn Zayd, from Uthman ibn Urwa, from Urwa, from Aisha, who said that Allah's Messenger said, "Indeed, Allah and His angels pray for the right-hand sides of the lines in Salah." The ruling of Mu'an'an Hadiths. According to the majority of Hadith, Fiqh, and Uṣool scholars, the Mu'an'an is considered muttasal, connected if it fulfills the following two conditions. 1. That the narrator who relates the chain in the an'an form not be a mudallis. 2. That all the transmitters connected by an, from, were contemporaries. 3. Imam al-Bukhari, Ali ibn al-Madani, and other eminent scholars added the third condition that meetings between the narrator and his teacher be conclusively established. Other scholars consider such narrations as broken until proven otherwise. The mu'annan is a hadith in which the conjunction anna, that is used throughout the sanad. The mu'annan is classified in the same way as the mu'an'an. II. Defects in the narrator. Defects in the transmitter are a result of 10 factors, 5 of which are connected to adala, trustworthiness, and 5 to dabt, accuracy. A. The factors relating to adala are if a narrator is 1. A liar, 2. Accused of lying, 3. Immoral, 4. An innovator in religious principles, and 5. Obscure. B. The factors related to dabt are if a narrator is 1. Excessive in his errors, 2. Weak of memory, 3. Negligent, 4. Known for a lot of misinterpretations, and 5. Known to contradict reliable reporters. The following are the rejected hadith due to the above-mentioned defects in the narrators, starting with the most serious defects. Mawdu', fabricated. If the defect in the narrator is that he is known to lie on the Prophet ﷺ, his hadiths are classified as mawdu'. Technically, a mawdu' narration is not a hadith at all, but a lie attributed to the Prophet ﷺ. It is referred to as a hadith figuratively. Al-Bayquni defined in his poetry as follows: وَالْكَذِبُ الْمُخْتَلَقُ الْمَصْنُوعَ عَلَى النَّبِيِّ فَذَلِكَ الْمَوْضُوعَ. And the invented fabricated lie on the Prophet, that is the forgery. The ruling concerning its narration. It is a consensus of opinion of the scholar that it is not permissible to narrate such a hadith without pointing out that it is fabricated. This is based on the hadith collected by Muslim. من حدث عني بحديث يرى أنه كذب فهو أحد من الكاذبين. Whoever speaks about me what considers to be a lie is among the kadhabin, major liars. Methods of recognition. A. Confession of the fabricator himself, as in the case of Abu Isma' Nuh ibn Abi Maryam, who confessed that he fabricated hadiths about the virtues of each surah of the Quran and attributed them to Ibn Abbas. B. Indirect confession, as in the case of one who narrates from a teacher and when asked about his own date of birth, mentions a date after the death of his teacher. If the hadith is only related by him, it is classified automatically as being mawdu'. C. Circumstantial factors about the narrator, as in the case where the narrator is a Shiite and the hadith he is reporting is about the virtues of the Prophet's descendants. D. Circumstantial factors in the hadith, as in the case where the wording is grammatically weak or its text contradicts the basic senses or the obvious meaning of the Quran. Reasons for fabrication. 1. Political differences. Muslim history witnessed a lot of turmoil and disorder after the murder of Uthman, the third caliph. Battles between supporters of Ali and those of Aisha and later those of Muawiyah led to the creation of the Shia and the Khawarij sects. A great deal of hadiths were fabricated in favor of Ali and the household of the Prophet ﷺ by Shia themselves, as admitted by well-known Shia sources. Ibn Abi al-Hadid says, lies were introduced in hadiths on merits originally by the Shia. In the beginning, they fabricated many hadiths in favor of their man, motivated by enmity towards their opponents. When the Bakriya found out what Shia had done, they fabricated on their part hadiths in favor of their man. One of their well-known reports in this connection is the hadith of Ghadir Khum, the spring of Qum. It says, The Prophet took hold of Ali's hand in the presence of the companions on his way back from the farewell Hajj. He let him stand until all of them knew him. Then he said, "This is my attorney and brother and the Caliph after me, so listen to him and obey him." Another is the city of knowledge Hadith attributed to the Prophet ﷺ. أنا مدينة العلم وعلي بابها فمن أراد الدار فليأتي الباب. I am the city of knowledge, and Ali is its door, so whoever wants the abode should go to the door. Al-Thahabi related that its narrator, Ahmad ibn Abdullah ibn Yazid, was a liar, and Ibn Adi labeled him a fabricator. Iraq became the center of hadith fabrication. Aisha is reported to have said, "O people of Iraq, the people of Sham, Syria, are better than you. A great number of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ went to them, so they reported to us what we know. But to you a small number of them went, but you reported to us what we know and what we did not." The Khawarij, on the other hand, appeared to be strong opponents to both Ali and Muawiyah, but due to their strict principle regarding lies, which was considered a major sin to them, they would hardly fabricate hadiths. Sulayman ibn al-Ash'ath said, "None among the people of Ahwa, dubious wishes, is better in hadith than the Khawarij, like Imran ibn Hitan and Abdul Hasan ibn al-A'raj." Some favorable remarks about Khawarij are also reported by Ibn Taymiyyah, who is known to be very strict in giving his judgment on hadith. 2. Philosophical movements. During the last days of the Umayyad Caliphate and throughout the Abbasid period, a number of issues related to faith and the attributes of Allah were raised. The discussion led to the creation of various factions known as Qadariyya, Jabariyya, Mu'tazila, Murji'ah, Mujassima, and Mu'attila. The supporters of each opinion fabricated contradictory hadiths, either supporting one opinion or rejecting it. Muhriz Abu Raja, a strong supporter of the Qadariyya, admitted that they were behind a lot of spurious hadiths. He said, "Don't report anything from anyone among the Qadariyya, as we used to fabricate hadiths in order to persuade people to believe in Qadr, with an intention of receiving reward from Allah." Some of the Karamiyya made a daring contribution to the fabrication of hadiths on the merits of certain particular actions. They admitted that the Prophet ﷺ had said, "Whoever speaks a lie against me intentionally should reserve his seat in the fire." But they remarked, "We did not speak lies against him, but for him instead." 3. Apostates. There were many disbelievers who accepted Islam as a cover for their underground activities. Because of Islam's strength, they were unable to openly oppose it and plot against it, so they tried to undermine it by inventing a body of slanderous hadith to deface Islam's pure image. Among them was Abdul Karim ibn Abil Awja, who admitted at the very moment when he was put to death by the order of Muhammad ibn Sulaiman ibn Ali, the Amir of Basra, "By God, I had fabricated 4,000 hadiths, forbidding what is allowed and allowing what is forbidden." A ridiculous hadith about the origin of the Creator is regarded as being one of their daring ventures. It goes as follows: When God Almighty wanted to create himself, he first created a horse and let it gallop till it sweated. Then he created himself from its sweat. Another notorious fabricator, Muhammad ibn Sa'id, who was executed by crucifixion by Abu Ja'far, the Abbasid Caliph, invented the following hadith on the authority of Humayd from Anas, from the Prophet ﷺ, that he said, "Ana khatimun nabiyyin, la nabiyya ba'di, illa an yasha Allah." I am the seal of the prophets, and no prophets will come after me, except if Allah so wishes. Clearly the man wanted to give credence to his claim of prophethood by adding the exceptional clause. 4. Storytellers. Amazing stories full of incredible events and attractively presented were always a source of inspiration for the common man. Consequently, storytellers used to go to great lengths to embellish the tales they conveyed to gullible audiences in the mosques. Some storytellers earned their livelihood from entertaining people. To give further credence to their material, they used to mention before their stories a full isnad. Most of such narrations were vigorously rejected by the traditionists. Sulaiman ibn Mihran al-A'mash, a famous traditionist, entered one of the mosques of Basra, where he heard a storyteller saying, "Al-A'mash reported to us on the authority of Abi Ishaq who reported from Abu Wa'il, etc. On hearing this, Al-A'mash seated himself in the middle of the circle and started plucking hairs from his armpit. The storyteller was much annoyed and exclaimed, "Shame! What are you doing while we are discussing matters of knowledge?" Al-A'mash replied, "What I am doing is better than what you are." He asked, "How?" Al-A'mash replied, "Because I am doing what is sunnah, while you are telling lies. I am Al-A'mash, and I reported nothing of what you are saying." A similar incident happened to Ahmad ibn Hanbal and Yahya ibn Ma'in. It is reported that while a storyteller in Baghdad was explaining the following verse, "Soon will your Lord raise you to a station of praise and glory," Surat Al-Isra 17:79, he said that Allah would seat the Prophet ﷺ next to him on the throne. This explanation was reported to Muhammad ibn Jarir at Tabari, d. 922 CE, who rejected the idea vehemently to the extent that he inscribed on his door the following line, "Glorified is he who has neither a companion nor anyone sitting beside him on the throne." This created such a fury among the people of Baghdad that they pelted his house with stones till they covered his door. 5. Ignorant ascetics. Some hadiths were fabricated in order to create a desire in people to do good deeds and to create in them a fear of evil deeds. Those who did this were the worst kind of fabricators, as they were people who were associated with asceticism, piety, and righteousness, and the masses readily accepted their fabrications because of their confidence in them. There is a chain letter that claims to be from Sheikh Ahmed, who dreamt about the future while sleeping in the Prophet's mosque. It is circulated among every 5 or 10 years and is a complete fabrication. And the Prophet ﷺ had said that anyone who tells about dreams that they didn't have would find their seat in the hellfire. Among the fabricators of the past was Maysara ibn Abdi Rabi, about whom Ibn Hibban collected a narration from Ibn Mahdi in which he said, "I said to Maysara ibn Abdi Rabi, 'Where did you get these hadiths? Whoever reads such and such will get such and such a reward.' He replied, 'I made them up to attract the people to do righteous deeds.'" In order to let the people devote much of their time to suburgatory forms of worship, some ascetics used to fabricate hadiths on merits of various actions. About 400 such hadiths are known to be invented by Ghulam Khalil, d. 275 AH, one of the renowned ascetics in Baghdad, whose death caused the whole market to close its doors in mourning. People like Abu Isma Nuh ibn Abi Maryam al-Marwazi used to invent hadiths on the merits of each surah of the Quran. Abu Isma later justified his act by saying, "I found people deserting the Quran and occupied themselves with the fiqh of Abu Hanifa and the Maghazi, battles, of Ibn Ishaq. So I invented these hadiths for the sake of reward from Allah." Another example given by Sheikh Nasir ad-Din al-Albani, "The world is prohibited to people of the hereafter, and the hereafter is prohibited to people of the world, and both are prohibited to the people of Allah." 6. Nationalism and factionalism. A. Hadith literature contains a lot of material on the merits or otherwise of various towns, most of which is proved to be fabricated. Prejudice for a certain place was indeed a major factor behind such fabrications. Hadiths on the merits of Jeddah, Basra, Jordan, Khurasan, Oman, Asqalan, Qizwin, Nasibin, Antioch, Ibadan, Iraq, and condemning Constantinople, Tabriya, and Sana, etc., comprise a large section in Ibn Iraq's work. B. Prejudice either for or against a race is another factor behind the circulation of hadith, such as the following. The Zanji, black, commits adultery when he is satisfied and steals when he is hungry. But there is generosity and a helping spirit among them as well. Love the Arabs for 3 reasons. I am an Arab, the Quran is in Arabic, and the people of paradise will converse in Arabic. The one who has nothing to give as charity should curse the Jews instead. C. Prejudice for one's own imam and hate for another is well depicted in the following invented hadith. سيكون في أمتي رجل يقال له محمد بن إدريس هو أضر على أمتي من الإبليس وسيكون في أمتي رجل يقال له أبو حنيفة هو سراج أمتي. There shall be in my ummah a man by the name of Muhammad ibn Idris, i.e. Ash-Shafi'i, who will be more dangerous to my ummah than Iblis, and there shall be a man in my ummah known as Abu Hanifa, who is the lamp of my ummah. Similar factors seem to be at work in spurious hadiths which support a legal issue held by one imam or denounce it altogether. 7. Inventions for personal motives. Some people invented hadiths to please their rulers. For example, there is a famous incident credited to Ghayath ibn Ibrahim, a courtier of Al-Mahdi, the Abbasid Caliph. On one occasion, when he came to the court of Al-Mahdi, who was fond of pigeons, he was asked to recite a hadith for the Caliph. He related, "So and so related to me that the Prophet ﷺ said, لا سبق إلا في نسل أو خف أو خافر أو جناح." No competition is allowed except in archery, camel, and horse racing, and flying pigeons. Caliph al-Mahdi granted him a reward, but when he left, he said, "I bear witness that the back of your neck is that of a liar against the Prophet ﷺ." Then he said, "But I made him to do it." So he ordered that his pigeons be slaughtered, and he abandoned the practice of keeping pigeons. Another interesting incident is reported by Al-Hakim on the authority of Sayf ibn Umar at-Tamimi, who said, "I was sitting by Sa'id ibn Tarif when his son came from the maktab, crying. He said, 'What made you cry?' The child replied, 'The teacher beat me.' Sa'id said, 'Let me disgrace him today.' Ikrimah reported to me on the authority of Ibn Abbas, referring back to the Prophet ﷺ, who said, 'The teachers of your children are the worst among you. They have least mercy upon orphans and are the hardest among you towards the poor.' Hadiths regarding the merits of a variety of vegetables and grains could be easily traced back to those who were trading in them. Ibn al-Qayyim, in his collection of spurious hadiths, known as Al-Manar al-Munif fi Sahih wa Da'eef, has given such hadith regarding the advantages of watermelon, lentils, fish, eggplant, grapes, beans, broad beans, salt, leek, pomegranate, and other vegetables. The following narration is a good example. Use the pumpkin as it brightens the head, and use the lentils as it has been glorified by 70 apostles. Another example is that of Muhammad ibn al-Hajjaj al-Lakmi al-Wasiti, who used to sell harisa. So he forged the following hadith. أدعمني جبريل الحريسة من الجنة لأشد بها ظهري لقيام الليل. Gabriel fed me some harisa from paradise to strengthen my back for midnight prayers. Ibn Muhammad and Abu Hatim labeled him a liar, and Ibn al-Jawzi said, "This hadith is a fabrication of Muhammad ibn al-Hajjaj, who used to sell harisa. Most of its chains center around him, and other liars stole it from him." 8. Wise sayings turned into hadith. Some reporters have tried to credit to the Prophet ﷺ different parables and sayings of wisdom. For example, the following saying is known to be that of Harith ibn Kalda, a well-known doctor among the Arabs. "The abdomen is the house of disease, and prevention is the head of remedies," but it was wrongly attributed to the Prophet ﷺ. Other examples are the popular sayings, "Seek knowledge even unto China," and "Seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave." حدثنا حيوة بن شريح حدثنا بقية عن أبي بكر بن أبي مريم عن خالد بن محمد الثقفي عن بلال بن أبي درداء عن أبي درداء عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: حبك شيئا يعمي ويسم. Hawaii ibn Shurayh informed us, saying that Bakiya informed us, from Abu Bakr ibn Abi Maryam, from Khalid ibn Muhammad al-Thaqafi, from Bilal ibn Abi Darda, from Abu Darda, from the Prophet ﷺ, that he said, "Your love of something blinds and deafens." Its chain is weak due to Abu Bakr ibn Abi Maryam, who had a poor memory, and his narrations were confused. Forged hadiths in tafsir. Many Quranic commentators used forged traditions in their commentaries without explaining their status. The fabricated hadiths attributed to Ubay ibn Ka'b on the excellence of the chapters of the Quran were among the most popular. They can be found in the tafsirs of Al-Tha'labi, Al-Wahidi, Az-Zamakhshari, and Ash-Shawkani. Literature. A number of scholars have made compilations exclusively on fabricated traditions. Among them are Al-Mawdu'at by Ibn al-Jawzi, which was the earliest work, Al-La'ali al-Masnu'a fil Ahadith by As-Suyuti, and Al-Fawaid al-Majmu'a fil Ahadith al-Mawdu'a by Ash-Shawkani, and most recently, Silsila al-Ḥadeeth Ḍa'eef wal-Mawdu' by Nasir Uddin al-Albani. Matrook, discarded. When a narrator is suspected of forgery, the sanad of the hadith in which he is mentioned is graded as matrook. Linguistically, the term matrook is the passive participle of the verb taraka, to leave, abandon, discard. Arabs traditionally referred to the broken eggshell left behind by the newly emerged chick as the tarika, and this term is also used for the inheritance left behind by the deceased. Al-Baykuni defined the hadith matrook as follows: متروكه ما واحد به انفرد واجمعوا لضعفه فهو كرد. It's discarded, matrook, what a single person alone narrated, and they are agreed on his weakness, so it is karad. Thus, the matrook is a strange narration related by a single weak narrator, whose weakness is due to his being accused of lying in his narrations or due to his sinful statements or actions. Identification. The hadith which is matrook may be known if any of the following two conditions exist. 1. The narration clearly contradicts universally accepted principles among Muslims, and its only chain of narration has in it a suspected forger. 2. The narrator is well known for telling lies in his statements, but there is no evidence to confirm that he lied in his hadith narrations. The following is an example of a hadith matrook collected by Ad-Daraqutni in his Sunan. حدثنا محمد بن القاسم بن زكريا المحاربي ثنا حسن بن محمد بن عبد الواحد ثنا سعيد بن عثمان حدثني عمر بن شمر عن جابر عن أبي طفيل عن علي بن أبي طالب وعمار بن ياسر أنهما سمعا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يجهر في المكتوبات ببسم الله الرحمن الرحيم في الفاتحة القرآن ويقنط في صلاة الفجر والوتر ويكبر في دبر الصلوات والمكتوبة من قبل صلاة الفجر غداة عرفة إلى صلاة العصر آخر أيام التشريك. Muhammad ibn al-Qasim ibn Zakaria al-Muharibi informed us, saying that Al-Hasan ibn Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahid informed us, saying that Sa'id ibn Uthman informed us, saying that Amir ibn Shimr informed me, from Jabir, from Abu at-Tufail, from Ali ibn Abi Talib, and Ammar ibn Yasir, that they both heard the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam recite the Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim aloud in the Fatiha of obligatory prayers, make kunut in Fajr and Witr prayers, and say Allahu Akbar at the end of the obligatory prayers from Fajr in the morning of the day of Arafat until the Asr prayers on the last days of Tashriq. This chain is very weak, due mainly to Amr ibn Shimr al-Ja'fi al-Kufi, about whom Ibn Hajar said in Lisan al-Mizan from Yahya ibn Ma'in, he is nothing. Al-Jurjani called him a deviated liar, and Ibn Hibban labelled him a Shi'ite, who cursed the companions and narrated forgeries from reliable narrators. An-Nasa'i and Daraqutni both said his narrations were matrook. Jabir ibn Yazid al-Ja'fi is also weak. Terminology. The hadith matrook is often described as very weak, da'eef jiddan. Munkar, rejected. The label munkar is the passive participle derived from the verb ankara, which means to reject. The mawdu' and matrook narrations were weak due to defects in adala, integrity. The munkar narration is weak due to defects in dabt, accuracy. Technically, it refers to a weak hadith which contradicts an authentic hadith. This was the definition preferred by Ibn Hajar. The two most common definitions by other scholars are: 1. A narration containing a transmitter known for committing excessive mistakes. 2. A narration containing a transmitter known for indecent conduct. Al-Baykuni defined it poetically as follows: وَمُنْكَرٌ الْفَرِدُ بِهِ وَاوٍ غَدَى تَعْدِيلُهُ لَا يَحْمِلُ التَّفَرُّدَ. The munkar is only narrated by a single bad narrator, who cannot stand alone with the responsibility of narration. The difference between munkar and shadh. Both categories involve contradiction of stronger narrations. However, In the case of shadh narrations, it is a reliable authentic chain in which a reliable narrator is in contradiction to another or other narrators who are stronger, while in the case of Munkar narrations, it is a weak transmitter in contradiction to reliable narrators. The following are two examples of a Munkar narration. The first is found in Sunan al-Tirmidhi in the chapter on the merits of Ali. حدثنا إسماعيل بن موسى حدثنا محمد بن عمر بن الرومي حدثنا شريك عن سلمة بن كهيل عن سويد بن غفلة عن سنابح عن علي رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أنا دار الحكمة وعلي بابها. قال أبو عيسى هذا حديث غريب منكر، وروى بعضهم هذا الحديث عن شريك ولم يذكروا فيه عن سنابه، ولا نعرف هذا الحديث عن واحد من الثقة عن شريك، وفي الباب عن ابن عباس. Ismail ibn Musa informed us, saying that Muhammad ibn Umar ibn al-Rumi informed us, saying that Sharik informed us, from Salama ibn Kuhail, from Suwaid ibn Ghafla, from As-Sunabihi, from Ali, that he quoted the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam as saying, I am the abode of wisdom, and Ali is its door. Abu Isa said, this hadith is gharib, unusual, munkar. Some of them narrated from Sharik, and do not mention from As-Sunabihi, and we do not know of this hadith being narrated by a reliable narrator from Sharik. The second is found in Sunan ibn Majah in the chapter on foods. حدثنا ابن بشر بكر بن خلف حدثنا يحيى بن محمد بن قيس المدني حدثنا هشام بن عروة عن أبيه عن عائشة قالت قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كلوا البلح بالتمر كلوا الخلق بالجديد فإن الشيطان يغضب فيقول بقي ابن آدم حتى أكل الخلق بالجديد. Abu Bishr Bakr ibn Khalaf informed us, saying that Yahya ibn Muhammad ibn Qais al-Madani informed us, saying that Hisham ibn Urwa informed us, from his father, from Aisha, that she quoted the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam as saying, eat half-ripe dates with dried dates, eat the old with the new, for Satan gets angry and says, Adam's child has remained until he has eaten the old with the new. Ibn Ma'in and others rated Abu Zakaria Yahya ibn Muhammad as da'eef. On the other hand, Ibn Adi stated that his narrations were authentic except in 4 cases, this being one of them. And Nasa'i said, this hadith is munkar because it is the only narration on eating half-ripe dates with dried dates, and Abu Zakaria has no corroboration for it. Abu Zakaria is graded by hadith critics as Shaykh Saleh, a good man, on the 5th and 6th level. Therefore, his narrations can only be considered after corroboration by other narrations. Imam Muslim selected some of Abu Zakaria's narrations for his book on supporting narrations, called Al-Mutaba'at,